Welcome back to the Garden Friends. We're continuing our 7-part series on the food forest layers, and we're on part 4 now with the herbaceous layer. Sometimes it's called the herb layer. And these are the smaller plants than the shrubs. So we've already covered the canopy, the understory, and the shrubs. We're working our way down from the top. The herbs are generally going to be shorter than the shrubs and a little bit taller than the ground covers. But mainly the thing about the herbs is these are non-woody plants. These are often very tender and will die to the ground if it gets cold enough. If you're tropical enough, they may not. But this is a good layer for food production. For example, we've got some Okinawa spinach right here. And it can be an excellent layer for food production. There's so many different plants that are herbs that you can fit in. You try to find your little sunny spots that are left after you've filled your food forest full of trees and understory trees and shrubs. Try to squeeze your herbs in every place you can. Our young food forest here is not as shady as it should be yet. But so some of these this is very sunny. We're in late November in the middle of the day, and you can see it's pretty sunny. It's actually pretty hot for late November, even for Florida. Here's another one, Sisu spinach, another edible leafy green like Okinawa spinach. Other plants that would qualify would even include lemongrass, which we have here. And, if it gets cold enough, even the chaya, which you could consider a shrub or a small tree, normally a shrub here because you want to prune it low, but if it dies back to the ground, that'd be an herbaceous plant. This is African blue basil. Let's keep going here for some more herbs and just talk about it a little bit as we go. The classic herb for food forests in most of the temperate regions is comfrey. Here in Central Florida and North Florida, we would be at the extreme southern warm end of where we could grow comfrey. This food forest isn't really shady enough yet, but in another couple of years, maybe even starting next year, I'll probably try to get some comfrey going because it's a great plant. It's a short little leafy green plant that sends a deep root down 8 feet or so. So it's really good as a dynamic nutrient accumulator, pulling up all sorts of nutrients from down deep. And people use it as a chop and drop plant. This is probably the most famous original chop and drop plant, comfrey. Here in Florida, it's warm enough that we have another plant that works better than comfrey because it can take full sun and all the heat and the rain all summer long. It loves it. That's this Mexican sunflower. It may look like a bush or a tree, but it freezes back to the ground. And so in that respect, it qualifies as a herb layer. These things can actually get 20 feet tall. So this is like a, herb plant for Jurassic Park, I guess you could say. But it's a tender plant. It's excellent for chop and drop. It does have a more shallow root zone than comfrey, but it's a good nutrient accumulator. Brings in lots of nutrients that you can then chop and drop and spread around the garden. Fakahatchee grass here could be called the herbaceous layer. If it gets cold enough, it'll freeze down to the ground. Generally, it is a Florida native plant, so it's generally okay and can handle some freezing. This is longevity spinach. Another one that could freeze all the way to the ground, or if we have a mild enough winter, it won't. But it's a good edible leafy green. Let's see what else we can find around the garden that fits into the herb layer. Aloe vera. It's not, well, if it got cold enough, it could freeze, but generally it's not going to do that here where we're at. Let's see what else we can find out here and what we can think of that would work as an herb layer plant. I am really actually looking forward to getting to the point where I can grow some comfrey here. I like it. It's just it doesn't do well in the heat and the full sun of Florida. If you get up to zone 8, 7, 6, in fact, comfrey is good all the way to zone 3, I believe, if I remember that correctly. I've never lived in a place that cold, so don't quote me on that. But anyway, it's just too hot and dry, hot and sunny here for comfrey, but it works well in the shadier spots. Also in this herb layer is going to be your annuals, annual vegetables. Here we have cilantro and arugula, some mustard, wild mustard here. And you got your cabbage here. In the summertime, plants like Seminole pumpkin. Over here we've got some parsley and some radishes. Radishes would probably fall into the below ground category because the roots are what you eat on the radishes, right? Let's see, let's keep going. But so yeah, any of your annual vegetables, which we don't worry too much with annuals in a food forest. We like to focus mostly on perennials. That way we plant them once, we're done. We don't have to plant them again after that. Here's a good native herb. It's called Biden's alba. It's really good for pollinators. It's late November, but if it were earlier in the season, this thing would just be covered with all sorts of insect pollinators. Let's keep going. See if we've got anything way out here in this part of the garden. Well, your beach sunflower is native, excellent pollinator attractor. Trying to see if I'm seeing a little bit of insect activity on some of this Biden's alba. I didn't plant any Biden's alba. It all showed up on its own, just volunteered. As you can see, I'm letting a whole lot of it just go ahead and thrive in here. This one's got a lot of insect activity on it, even in late November. And then all these wild weeds and grasses, this is all just a bunch of stuff that volunteered. There's a whole big bunch of Biden's alba back that way. But you've got lots of volunteers that pop up. Some of these would be considered ground covers. Some of them are nitrogen fixers. So anyway, you don't want any bare ground. Excuse me. You want to make sure all of your ground is covered with either with something growing, something green, or at least with some mulch. And the herb layer is where you can really cover the ground really well. And then if there's any ground left to be covered after that, you've got your ground cover layer, which we'll get into next. Okay, that's it on the herb layer or the herbaceous layer.